Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 1946 adaptation of Charles Dickens' novel, Great Expectations.
Don't loiter, boy.
Hey, great. I love that attitude. Let's get this show on the road. So I'm reviewing every movie that has 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I will give them all a score of 1 to 10. After I review every movie, I will rank them from worst to best. I started in the 1920 silent movie era, and now I'm at 1946 with Great Expectations. So this movie has a 100% fresh rating from the critics and an 88% fresh rating from the audience. It stars John Mills as Pip, Valerie Hobson as Estella, Finlay Curry as Magwitch, Marita Hunt as Miss Havisham, and Alec Guinness as Herbert Pockets. Now, this is a very young Alec Guinness. I only remember him from Star Wars 4, 5, and 6, where he played Obi-Wan Kenobi. He was our only hope. And now he's in his 20s in this movie, which is absolutely crazy, but I'm all for it. So when we are first introduced to this movie, we are introduced to the character of Pip. Pip is a very young child. He is in a graveyard. The graveyard is surrounded by all this fog. I believe it's supposed to be near a marsh also. And at this graveyard is the grave of his mother and father. So while he is visiting this grave, he is approached by an escaped convict, because apparently the house that they live at and the graveyard that it's by is also near a prison where a lot of people just escape all the time. So this convict approaches the kid and says, "Where's your mother?" And Pip points to the gravestone and he says, "Oh, it's also your father, eh?" And he says, "Yeah, it's my father too." And he says, "Where's your house?" So he points to his house and he says, "Well, if you don't have a mother or father, who's raising you?" And it's his sister and his sister's husband, who is a blacksmith. So finding out that his sister's husband is a blacksmith, he says, "I want you to go and get the tools to get me out of these shackles. If you tell anyone, I'll kill you. And I know someone who can do it. I have a friend who is an expert at killing people without anyone ever noticing, and we're gonna run you through."
Where's your mother?
There, sir. No, sir. There, sir. Also Georgiana. That's my mother.
Ah. And is that your father along with your mother?
Yes, sir. Him too. Late of this parish.
And pretty much everyone in this movie talks with, I think it's a Cockney accent. I think that's what it's called. It's from London. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe someone who's seen the movie can let me know. I'm just using a word that I've heard of before, which is Cockney accent, which I'm assuming is what they're using. Now, I'm probably the only person in the world who doesn't have a good, English London accent that I can use. So I'm not going to try. But I think everyone's talking this Cockney accent. So he goes back home and he starts asking questions about the job that his sister's husband does as a blacksmith, and what these tools are for, and what the prison is, and who these prisoners are. And his mother goes "You keep asking questions, and you keep asking questions, and every time I answer him, you ask another question."
Where the firing comes from.
Bless the boy, from the hulks, of course.
Oh, Hulks. And please, what's Hulks?
There you go. That's the way with this boy. Answer him one question and he'll ask you a dozen.
So he ends up getting the tools, and he goes and he finds the escaped convict. And while he's there, he sees another guy who's also an escaped convict. And he brings the guy some bread and some brandy and the tools to bust out. And the guy ends up busting out, but he says, "You didn't see my friend, did you?" And Pip says, "Yeah, I saw your friend. So he's a bad man, so don't go near him." So he ends up busting out of his shackles. And then a little bit later on in the movie, there comes word that there's escaped convicts in the area, and the blacksmith and Pip end up joining this expedition to find the escaped convict. They end up finding them, and the escaped convict, who is Magwitch, he ends up going back to jail, and then that kind of ends his story for now. He will come back later. So then Pip ends up visiting the house of the old Miss Havisham. Now, she lives in a house all by herself that's kind of, there's no light that comes into the house. It's basically drapes everywhere, so no sunlight can come in. And she's this wealthy person.
I'm close. Look at me.
You're not afraid of a woman who has never seen the sun since you were born.
And Pip is to go over there to keep her company, but also to play with this girl who also lives with Miss Havisham. Now, this is not Miss Havisham's daughter, but she's of Pip's age, and they're supposed to play together and have fun. I don't really know how she's introduced into the movie because he just kind of shows up to their house and there he is. So he ends up playing with this girl, but she is like a lot of women and a lot of girls that I knew when I was younger, in that she like teases him, where she like makes fun of his accent, makes fun of the fact that he's poor. She says mean things to him, and this is all, I believe, in an effort to earn his love. The kind of person that like they make fun of you and then you automatically fall in love with them, like when you're kids. And it ends up working out because Pip ends up falling in love with her.
Well? Well, miss? Am I pretty? Yes, I think you're very pretty.
But she ends up just kind of playing with him, and she never really shows any affection towards him, though she does allow him to kiss her, and she acts as if that's like some prize.
Now you want to go home.
That they're able to kiss. And then, every day he goes over there, he keeps Miss Havisham company, he plays with her, and he kind of, is falling for her. And then one day Miss Havisham says, well, we'll see you next week. And Pip says, oh, I can't come next week because I'm doing I'm of the age now where I will be doing a blacksmith apprenticeship.
Tomorrow's my birthday. I'm 14.
Oh, and you start your apprenticeship with a blacksmith, do you not?
With my brother-in-law, so I'm no longer able to do this. And then Estella, who's the girl, she ends up saying that she actually is leaving too because she's going to go to school to learn to be a fine lady, fine woman. We then go into the future a little bit, and I guess Pip is in his 6th year of an apprenticeship, so I'm not really sure how long these apprenticeships go, but he's in his 6th year of his apprenticeship, and he's met by a man who comes to their house, and this man's a lawyer, and he says, I have a proposition for you. I work for a very wealthy person who wants to be your benefactor. He wants to donate the money to you to go to school to learn to be a fine gentleman, to try to get you out of like this blacksmith stuff and try to get you more into like the wealthy type of crowd. The only stipulation is that you have to keep your name Pip, and you cannot know who this benefactor is until they want to come forward and tell you who they are.
Very well then. I come now to this young fellow. And my communication to him is that he has great expectations.
So he says, yeah, fine, that's fine. He obviously thinks that this is Miss Havisham. I think everyone believes that. I had my doubts because I thought that this was too easy an answer. There would be no real conclusion at the end if it just ended up being Miss Havisham. It would be really hard to keep the audience's attention. So I honestly thought it was Estella. She is now grown up. They're of like the grown-up age. She went to school to be a fine woman. I thought that maybe this was her way to like reach out to him and let him know that she's in love with him and that she is reciprocating this love. So we don't know yet. So he ends up going and he's living now with Herbert Pocket, they are both learning to be fine gentlemen.
Now, we can soon settle you. Wemmick, Mr. Pip's file. Wemmick here will conduct you to a Mr. Herbert Pocket's rooms in Barnard's Inn, where you will live. Oh, sit down, Mr. Pip, sit down. Mr. Pocket will be able to give you a good lead as to the places in London with which you shall become acquainted.
So he lives with him, and he's learning to be this fine gentleman, and, he ends up going back to Miss Havisham. Miss Havisham summons him. So what Miss Havisham does is she gets Pip's brother-in-law to come over to their house, and you can see that the brother-in-law is kind of a fish out of water here. He is not in his element. He does not know how to act around proper gentlemen. And there's this weird, like, very comical scene I don't know if it's comical for the reason they want it to be, but he ends up putting his hat on a banister, and the hat keeps falling off. And then there's this really ridiculous scene where the hat falls off and he catches it, but then for some reason he fumbles it around the room, and he goes around the room, the whole room, and then he ends up fumbling it into like a cup of tea. For no reason, like the hat didn't like make these movements, like the hat didn't just start like flying through the air and he was juggling it. The hat would have just fallen towards him and he would have caught it, but instead he's like fumbling it all around the room, which I had to pause the movie because I was just laughing so hard at the scene. It reminded me of those infomercials where people like open a cabinet and everything falls at them and they're like, ah. But so he ends up, like he says, the only reason I'm here is because I have a message from Miss Havisham and she wishes to talk to you.
Recently sent for me. Miss Havisham, Joe? Would you tell Mr. Pip, she said, that I wish to see him at once, for I have something most particular to disclose to him.
So clearly Pip thinks that this is going to be the revelation that she is the benefactor. So he goes over there and they're just talking, and finally he gets to the point to be like, oh, I thought you summoned me here for some reason. And then we are showed Estella, who is now a grown woman. So him and Estella end up going out and talking. They go for a walk, and they're reminiscing about old times. And he says, oh, do you remember like this one time this thing happened? And she's like, why would I remember that? I had no feelings for you.
Do you remember the first time I came here? The time you made me cry?
Did I? I don't remember.
Not remember you made me cry?
You meant nothing to me. Why should I remember?
Why would you even cross my mind? So again, she's like either playing this game with him to where she actually does have feelings for him, or she is like kind of she doesn't have feelings for him, but she's letting him think that she does. So either way, she's kind of playing him and playing with his emotions, and it's kind of tragic a little bit. But so they meet, they talk to each other, and they have their back and forth that they had before, where he is in love with her. He hasn't said he's in love with her yet, but you can tell he's in love with her, and she's kind of playing with his emotions. And then a little bit later in the movie, while they're reminiscing with each other, they're going out with each other, they're going to different places, he realizes that she has a lot of different suitors, and there's especially one particular suitor who takes up a lot of her time.
Until I realized, somewhat uncomfortably, that she had many admirers. It was not until the winter that fate threw her in the way of Bentley Drummle.
So he is a little, a little suspicious that maybe she is splitting her time with him and this other guy. So down the road a little bit in this movie, I'd say that the next big thing that happens is there's a knock on the door, and Pip opens the door, and a shadowy figure walks in, and he sits down and he starts talking to Pip, and we realize that it is Mr. Magwitch. He's back. He broke out of jail, and he ended up having like this sheep business that afforded him a lot of money, and now he's like a wealthy guy from the sheep business. And he starts talking to Pip, and the more he talks to Pip, you really start realizing that he is the benefactor.
Yes, Pip, dear boy, I made a gentleman of you. It was me what done it. I swore that time that as sure as I earned a guinea, that guinea would go to you.
So the movie does a really good job at making you forget all about this character. Like, why was he even introduced in the first place? Like, we went through the whole movie without ever seeing him again, and now he's introduced again, and he is the benefactor, and he says, you were so nice to me when I broke out of jail. You gave me the food, you didn't have to. You gave me the brandy, you didn't have to. All I asked was for tools, and I decided that I wanted to use my wealth to make a real man out of you, and now I feel like you're almost my son. And sure, went on. So Pip gets upset because he realizes now that Miss Havisham was just kind of playing with him and stringing him along, and she let him believe that she was the benefactor. So he goes and he talks to her, and he says, now I have a benefactor who can really afford me nothing. I have no status in the town. I'm not going to have like the great wealth that I thought I could have. And like, you played me this whole time. And she says, yes, I did. I hate men, so I don't know why you would think that I was the benefactor here. So she does hate men, by the way. The reason why she is living in this place by herself with the drapes pulled is because she was once supposed to be married, but she was left at the altar, and then this made her like a very bitter and old woman who didn't want any contact with the rest of society.
The marriage day was arranged, the wedding dresses were bought, the wedding guests were invited. The day came, but not the bridegroom. He wrote a letter, and when she'd recovered from a bad illness, she laid the whole place waste, as you've seen it, and has never since looked upon the light of day.
So she ends up like adopting this daughter, and she is trying to groom the daughter to do the same thing, where instead of like the men leaving her at the altar, she's going to just terrorize men her whole life and never fall in love and never have feelings. And her lot in life is to just try to get even with the with men. So so knowing this earlier in the movie, it was hard to believe that Miss Havisham was the benefactor because she hates men. But then he turns to Estella and he says, like, so I'm guessing I'm just going to come out and tell you I love you, and you know, I have to go away now, but before I go away I want you to know that I love you. And she says, oh silly boy, I've told you 1,000 times that I have no feelings for you.
But now I have to go away. And I must say it before I go. I love you, Estella. I've loved you ever since I first saw you in this house.
Pip, I tried to warn you not to love me, but you wouldn't be warned, for you thought I didn't mean it.
I am completely incapable of love, and by the way, that one guy I spent all that time with, I'm marrying him. So, you know, this totally destroys Pip emotionally. He leaves, and then Estella goes her way, and while they're gone, somehow Miss Havisham, she ends up lighting herself on fire by accident, and before Pip can get back up there to save her, she's dead. So that's the end of the Havisham story. So then, now that we have Magwitch here, we learn that there is a gem. They decide that they're going to try to get Magwitch on a boat, and that Pip is going to go with him on this big boat because Magwitch escaped prison, so he's technically still wanted. But then, while they're trying to escape on this boat, you see this the escaped convict from earlier that he was with when he was escaping out of jail. He is there, and he has some sort of vendetta against Magwitch. So he has like all the cops with him, and they're all on a boat, and they're all now after Magwitch. So Magwitch ends up, you know, getting on the boat and knocking over this guy who's after them, and he ends up killing him. And then they capture Magwitch, and they take him to court, and they sentence him to death. So Magwitch, while he's waiting to be like sentenced to death, while he's waiting to be hung, hanged. I'm sorry. He gives kind of a deathbed confession to Pip, saying that he once had a daughter, and that the daughter was taken away from him, and the daughter, you know, was taken away from him, and he has no idea where the daughter is. So on a hunch, Pip goes to the lawyer who approached him earlier in the movie and says, I need to know more about this daughter. And the lawyer basically says in a roundabout manner that Estella was Magwitch's daughter. And he ended up he had to give her up when he went to prison or something, and she never knew about it, so she ended up going to live with Miss Havisham. So with this information, he just goes back to Miss Havisham's house. He's basically is losing his benefactor. His benefactor is going to die. He's lost his girl. So he goes back to Miss Havisham's house, I'm believing, to reminisce about old times, to kind of go there and remember what he had and remember who these people were, and, you know, just think about the old times. And when he gets there, he sees Estella there, and Estella says that the guy that she was going to marry has left her, and now she is just going to live in this house with the drapes closed, and she's going to kind of live that same kind of life that Miss Havisham had. Now Pip is like kind of startled by this, and he goes and he opens up all the drapes, and he says, "You're not going to live like that. You're going to love. You're going to be a person. You're going to get out in the world, and you're going to see things, and we're going to do it together because I love you." And then she basically realizes that he is the only person left that she communicates with, and, you know, why not? It's better than him than nothing, basically. So he is okay with the fact that he's better than nothing, and they end up, at the end, I'm assuming they end up getting together. I think they do.
I've never ceased to love you, even when there seemed no hope for my love. You're part of my existence, part of myself.
And they end up living their lives. So that is the movie in a nutshell. So what did I think about this movie? I actually enjoyed this movie a lot more than I thought I would. I'm not a huge fan of, like, I'm not period pieces. I mean, technically this wasn't made, I guess, too long after Charles Dickens wrote it. I mean, he wrote it in like the 1800s, I think. And this movie was in the early 1900s. So for us, it's a period piece, which I'm not usually a fan of. My wife is a huge fan of period pieces, so she usually watches them on Netflix while I'm doing stuff like this. But I actually really liked this movie, and I think I liked it because of how dark it was, especially in the beginning. The movie has a really good opening where the kid is at the grave and the convict kind of approaches him, and you really have no idea where this is going to go. This could be either really bad or really good, and it, you know, it kind of weaves its way oddly. But the story itself is fantastic. There are two twists at the end of the movie where who the benefactor actually is, and the fact that Estella is the daughter of Magwitch was really surprising to me. Magwitch in the beginning just seemed like a character they would never talk about again, but then it also didn't make any sense of why they would introduce him if they never talked about him. And at the end, he's like one of the most important characters in the whole movie, because he's like the whole reason that Pip is able to become a gentleman, and the whole reason why Estella is in the position that she is. So he's like basically the backbone of this whole movie, and you don't even realize that till the very end. The only like issues I kind of have with this movie is that I know that the blacksmith is just like a brother-in-law, I guess, or a stepbrother. I'm not really sure how that works, but he's not like blood related to Pip. But when Pip ends up leaving, and when you know, to be a gentleman, and when Pip ends up like going to this lady's house that I don't think he even knows, he really has no emotional attachment to Pip at all. He's just kind of like, oh, okay, sure, why not? Bye, Pip. See you later. You know, I would think that there'd be some sort of emotional attachment to this kid that you're raising, but there was absolutely nothing there, and I kind of thought that was weird, and it just, I don't know, probably most people won't even notice that, but it kind of bothered me a little bit that there was no emotional attachment to this kid, and I think that's true throughout the entire movie. So Pip has no emotional attachments to almost anyone. He tries to attach to people, he tries to show his love, and he tries to earn other people's love, but no one will give him that love and affection that he needs. His sister is basically annoyed by him the whole time. Her husband, I mean, he likes Pip, but he doesn't like really have any, he doesn't really show love to Pip, I would say. And then Miss Havisham, of course, is just playing Pip, and then Estella is playing Pip, and there's really like, the fact that Pip was able to grow up and be like a normal human being to me is actually amazing, because he had no stability really at all, it seems like. But you know, I really like the bleakness of the movie, especially in the beginning. I like the twist at the end. I would say the acting of this movie is okay. I don't really think that anyone had a real chance to like outshine anyone else, or a real chance to really do much as far as acting goes. They kind of played the parts that they were supposed to play, and they all did a very convincing job of it. Very good. And I don't know, Estella kind of, her character, I just think that I've seen in my personal life, I've been Pip in these situations too often to where I really figured out what was going on early with Pip, and I just really didn't like Estella at all. And at the end of the movie, the only reason why she ends up being with Pip is because she realizes it's better than spending a life in darkness. I mean, I still don't think she loves him. I still don't think she has any affection to him. But she's just going to do it. She's going to go through the motions, and I'm sure he's going to be happy about it. Besides that, the cinematography is quite good in this movie. I would say the writing is quite good, especially since you can do 2 twists at the end, and I didn't see either of them coming. But yeah, this movie was better than I thought it would. It was a pleasant surprise. Honestly, I thought that this would be one of the ones on the list that I would like the least. So it was great. It was a really good movie. It's something that I would probably revisit again if someone wanted to watch it with me. I would watch it again. But yeah, I'm kind of amazed at how Pip was able to be so, on his own and not needing anyone with him ever. He was very independent, which I don't understand how he got that in him, who taught him to be that way. And also, I also don't understand, in the movie, he's supposed to be learning to be a gentleman, which is supposed to make him like better status than if he was this blacksmith. But he never really has his own money in the movie. He's using the benefactor's money. I don't really see that he has a job or a career path or a destination or anything like that. He's just learning to be a gentleman and then living off someone else's money. And then at what point does he get the skills he needs to actually do something with his life, to actually like do a job or a profession or something that will grant him money? Like, I honestly think he would have been better off just staying a blacksmith. So I don't understand that part of London life or Old English life or whatever that is, exactly what he was supposed to be doing profession-wise. And that kind of lingered with me the whole movie. I was kind of wondering that. So, like, what exactly is he going towards? What's his goal here? Like, what's going to be the end game? But I never figured that out. I still have no idea. But anyway, movie was better than I thought it would be, and I give it an 8 out of 10. And I hope you join me for my next review, which is going to be My Darling Clementine. Thank you. I hope you have a great day.